I want to hit on something that you mentioned that you had in your own experience. I've had in my own experience, which is literally why I found you. The whole concept of that long-term low carb, high protein diet and what it
Hmm.
does to your body and
Hmm.
how it can actually
Hmm.
induce insulin resistance.
Hmm.
Can you talk
Yeah.
about that?
Yeah. So what I mentioned in the new book, I hit you in the face with the notion that there are a number of absolutely unavoidable realities. An unavoidable reality is something that you will have to deal with. It's unavoidable. It's just when. And the most important of these that diets of this age are completely disconnected from. And when I say this, it sounds like, oh, you're just trying to sell your book, right? It's like, no, you've never written a book. You don't understand. There's no money in books.
Right.
No, because I've always been very concerned with what's true and things that I have found in hindsight over 50 plus years to be true. The idea is let's put truth out there. The truth is that the diets at this age are just disconnected from the reality of time. And it's easy to see, super easy to see. So when you look at and talk about like, low carb, high protein and start talking about it, the assumption is, well, it's only good. I mean, it's just only good, right? Until you ask what point in time. And if you ask that question you could ask that to a dozen smarties and they will, it's like a record skip. They're like, what? What did you just say? I said, at what point in time is it good? What do you mean? What do you mean? What point in time is it good? What are you trying to say? So the truth is there's very good research on long-term high protein low carb diets that they actually induce insulin resistance, and there's a number of mechanisms that have been established that show why this is true. But what I do in the book, just to make it super easy to understand, is I call this the four, physics has the four fundamental forces. There kind of really are four basic forces that work over time. And it's easy to see. Again, you don't need an expert, you just need sense. So there's accumulation. Over time, if you're doing any given protocol, doesn't matter what it is, something will accumulate somewhere. Okay. There
Makes
is
sense.
degradation. Means if you do too much of something for too long, something somewhere is going to degrade over time. Okay. There is attenuation. If you do something for a long time, all of the different mechanisms that surround that mechanism are going to attenuate. In
Right.
other words, like receptors
Yeah.
attenuate over time. Neurons attenuate over time. This is
The
really easy.
the payoff gets less and
Yeah.
less.
Yeah. And so we can just go, and then there's compensation. Compensation is the final of the four. So whenever you throw something at the body, there's a compensatory effect. There's a compensation that takes place. And so we could use dozens of examples here to show this is true. The example I use in the book is excessive high protein, excessive fasting long term. Let's apply those ideas. Let's apply accumulation, degradation, compensation, and just see what happens. So what you're going to get is long term, you're going to get a compensation in the colon. The colon's going to alkalize from excessive protein. Okay. That's not good. I know we've been brainwashed to think that alkalinity is good, acidity is bad, but it's compartment specific. So when we're
Yes.
talking about the colon needs to be slightly acidic.
Mm-hmm.
And the result of the colon going alkaline, even just a bit, is catastrophic. It's catastrophic because it becomes a cancer promoting environment when the colon gets alkaline. Okay. So that is an example of a compensation that happens when you do something too long. In this case, high protein. You're doing it way too, and by the way, it's worth mentioning that the research tends to define high protein as 25 to 35% of diet. What we're seeing
Wow.
nowadays is like 70, 80% of diet
Right.
protein. We're seeing these incredibly high protein levels sustained over time. Another example is degradation. Okay, so let's take that. So the average person, by the time they are 60, and again, you don't need an expert, you just need sense to figure this out, has about 70% of their kidney function left. And you're losing 1% per year, even if you're healthy.
Mm-hmm.
Healthy. So you hear this chatter online like high protein intakes are just no risk whatsoever unless you have kidney issues. Who doesn't? Okay? The organs don't work as well as you get older. That's an unavoidable reality. And so when they're not a set of tires with unlimited tread,
Right.
they wear out. And so if you're shoving these massive high protein intakes in on a regular basis, there's a degradation that takes place in the kidneys. Okay. And we can go down this list and I can show you step by step. Another would be accumulation. So if we take fusobacteria, which is a cancer promoting bacteria, and it ferments meat. Now, the really interesting thing is in dogs, fusobacteria fermentation makes them super healthy. And it's one of the ways you can reverse engineer what you should eat just by what you get in terms of bacteria. So dogs are pure meat eaters. My friend Ron Penna has this ranch in Texas where he's curing cancer in dogs, and they feed them their real diets. They feed them like, meat diets, and they get well. And they ferment fusobacteria and they get well. In humans, fusobacteria is a known cancer promoter, and you get it from fermenting protein in the colon.